MC for this evening. A bit of an odd role for me, to be sure, but hopefully we will all get through this in one piece. I'm glad to be back here at Massy Gallery. Since moving to Vancouver mid-January, this place has been kind of a real go-to point for me. I've had an opportunity to take in a multitude of events here, and I'm really glad that this place exists so close to my home, just down the street here in the Downtown Eastside. And it's always nice to sort of walk past and maybe inside to sort of see what's new and on the walls. And it's also nice to walk past in the evenings and to see that there's events happening here most of the time. I was talking with Patricia recently, who was saying that there's been several hundred events happen here over the last little while. So that's really remarkable, and a real statement about community and art and how it intersects, and why it's such an important part of our lives, right? So here I am in front of a microphone. I can't even believe it. So you're here tonight as part of a traveling message chest talk, and perhaps you may have seen one of these incredible bentwood boxes, one of these cedar bentwood boxes in here or around recently. These are part of a journey that's been started, that is now sort of in the early stages of a 4-year journey that these message chests are going to take. There's 13 of them, and these are 13 chests that are being designed and decorated and carved and put together in a very artistic way by 13 talented artists. And these are some folks that you're going to be hearing from tonight, who are going to be talking and sharing a little bit about their process, their motivation, and kind of their dreams and their aspirations for their role in this project. And this project is called, well, I guess we use the term project kind of loosely. We do think of it as a journey, but for lack of a better terminology, it's a journey that sort of goes about trying to honor our grandmothers, which is an important thing in Indigenous communities all over. Understanding that, the idea of matriarchal societies in many of our communities is a real sort of critical part of the way in which we, keep it together and have traditionally kept it together throughout time immemorial. So we like to pay tribute and to honor the lives of those who've come before us. And so this journey is an attempt to, or is an opportunity to do just that. So this talk this evening is assisted by Further Rise Indigenous Arts Collective and supported by Sacred Rock. This occasion is brought to you in partnership with Vancouver Moving Theatre and special to their 2022 Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival. I saw the magazine. I guess it's a full-size magazine of all the programming that's been scheduled for this festival that has been going strong now since late October, and I was kind of blown away. As a new resident to Vancouver, I had no idea that this thing is as large as it is. So it's really great to be a part of this. It's really great to be able to acknowledge the work that has gone into this festival, work that I can't even imagine, is involved to pull this off of the ground. And so speaking of the work that we're doing, we are doing this work on the ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I've heard a number of land acknowledgements over the past few years, and I'm sure you have as well. I think sometimes, they kind of catch me off guard for all sorts of reasons, and it's kind of hard for me, at least, to deliver a very solid land acknowledgement when I've heard so many great ones. But for me, when I think about a land acknowledgement, I'm aware of the fact that I'm from a completely different territory. These lands are not mine. And a lot of the times I feel like I'm an invited guest to these nations, and sometimes I feel like I'm an uninvited guest. You know, so it's important for me to kind of place myself in a good way when I am working and playing and on these lands, these beautiful territories that have been home to people for time immemorial. I think it's really significant to acknowledge the, you know, unceded aspect of it, which is to say that these are stolen lands for all intents and purposes. And I think that the average land acknowledgement doesn't really sort of capture that in the way that it should. So I just kind of wanted to say that in my own words and to just sort of acknowledge that it is a very special honor to be here on these territories. So miigwech for that. Yeah, so I was asked to be a part of this project shortly after I got to Vancouver by a very good friend of mine, and Nadine. And she had kind of explained to me that this was an attempt to kind of bring together family and residents in the sort of British Columbia sort of area to work to restore relationships intergenerationally and between interior Salish and Coast Salish peoples and people like me who are kind of found myself here as well. These nations tend to be connected to the Fraser and the Thompson Rivers, including the Downtown Eastside, where Nadine's grandmothers lived and died. I've been finding out more about, you know, that history as the months have gone on, and it's really sort of helped me to kind of focus my own work on this journey. So it's been really cool to get to know Nadine and to sort of try to connect with the work that is being done. So tonight we're going to be hearing from a few of these message chest sort of artists, people who've done some work or who are planning on doing some work on one of these amazing cedar chests. These chests are made by a new friend of mine. I'm sure he wouldn't refer to himself as a master, but certainly when looking at all of these things, he has far exceeded, you know, anything that I've seen as far as talent to be able to kind of create these beautiful, beautiful objects. And it's a real honor to be able to kind of work on one of these things. So we'll let Siri figure it out for a quick second. She's got an opinion, as always. But that's fine. So we are, I think we're live. I think we're actually live streaming. I think we're out there in internet land. And so hello, internet. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will be hearing from folks live here in this actual real physical space, and we'll be sharing some videos of some of the artists who couldn't be with us here tonight. So you're going to get a taste of kind of what it's like to be inside the minds of these sick and twisted individuals. Okay. Right. So I'm actually really excited to hear from Mr. Peter Wayne Gong. He's been a fella who I've had the honor to go and visit a little bit this year, to spend time in his studio and to sort of try my hand at, you know, carving, you know, some stuff on my own. I'm certainly in no position to sort of take a carving knife to something as beautiful as this, but it has been really nice to sort of receive a little bit of guidance and instruction from Peter, who's been very generous with his time with myself. So as the creator of these amazing boxes, I'm really happy to introduce you to Peter Wayne Gong, who's going to share a few words with you tonight.
Well, it's good day. As Mike said, my name is Peter Gong. I'm an Indigenous artist here in the Fraser Valley. I was born in Mission, and I live in Mission. I raised my family in Mission, and I was raised up on a little reserve called Wannock Reserve Number 1. And spent most of my time, my life, working in the forest industry. But I was introduced to art as a teenager from an uncle who was well-versed. He was a very good artist. He was a Squamish Nation member, and by the way, I am a member of the Squamish Nation. And I've been asked to get up and talk about what it means to me to create these beautiful bentwood chests. This is an example with amazing art on it done by Nadine. And so I've been making bentwood boxes and bentwood chests for about 6, 7, 8 years now, and become relatively proficient at it. And Nadine contacted me over social media. At first, I was referred to her by Facebook contact or something like that. And she phoned me and asked me if I would participate. And I'm a reluctant artist when it comes to decorating the boxes I make. And but she asked if I could make the chests. I said, absolutely, that's what I do. That's more or less what I specialize in now. I make bentwood boxes. And talking to her about this, this healing journey and honoring our grandmothers, it kind of brought me back full circle to when I was a young person. And my mom and dad would take us kids to visit my grandmother, who lived in Queensborough in New Westminster. And it was always an interesting trip into town, because at the time, in that household, my grandmother and a couple aunts and an uncle, they were all alcoholics. And we didn't know, like as kids, I didn't know what to expect when we went there. And so we were walking on eggshells till we kind of figured out, you know, what kind of experience we're gonna have that particular day. And, but, you know, years later when I was a teenager, when my grandmother was no longer in the throes of alcoholism, and my aunts and uncles weren't either, they would come out every weekend to the farm I lived on and visit. And we would have a big dinner on Sunday, and my dad would cook these amazing meals. On one of these visits, my grandmother came to me when I was outside, and she apologized to me for not being a good grandmother. And I didn't say much at the time. I was just a kid. And but years, you know, I've had a lot of years to think about it. And I can't imagine the strength it took for someone like that to say something to her grandson. And just thinking about it, it was a hard thing. I can't imagine the strength it took for a person, because I've never been caught up in addiction myself. So I can't imagine the strength it takes to come out of that. Sometimes it takes a lifetime. And she came out of it, and she apologized to me. And so, you know, talking with Nadine and talking about life in general, you know, this really is a healing journey for people. And you don't have to be Indigenous for this to be a healing journey. It applies to everybody, every race. And we as human beings have a right to be here on this planet. And it doesn't matter whether you, where you're from. I mean, we talk about land acknowledgements when we get up and acknowledge the Indigenous nations that were here when the colonizers came. But every human being has a right to be here. Every human being has the right to housing. That's a human right, housing. And so when I come to Vancouver and I see, and especially Chinatown, I see these tents where people are living and stuff. It's really heartbreaking. I don't know where that comes from. I've worked hard my whole life. And the results of that is I'm living a comfortable life now. That doesn't mean these people on the street didn't work hard. it's just circumstances, it's life, it's random luck in a lot of cases. But back to the healing journey, you know, I'm very grateful for Nadine searching me out and asked me to participate, because it's been healing for me already when I think back to my life growing up, and then having, when I was a young teenager, having my grandmother come and ask and tell me that she's apologizing for not being a good grandmother. And I can't imagine what it was like for her. She was an orphan, for one. And then her husband, my grandfather, died at 35, leaving her with a young family to raise on her own as an Indigenous person. Hard enough in the Depression to raise a family if you were non-Indigenous. If you were you know, if you weren't of the dominant society, you had a lot harder time. So I want to thank Nadine for inviting me to participate, and it's an honor for me to create these boxes, these chests, so that other artists can put their art on it. For me, that's the reward. You know, I always hope to see the finished product when I send the boxes out into the world for other artists to decorate, and sometimes I actually do get to see them. So, Haichika, thank you, and may the Creator be with you.
That's very cool. Thank you very much. I feel like Peter's a lovely, you know, kind, and sometimes quiet guy, just like myself. So anything that he says, anything that I can hear, is of extreme value to me, and so I appreciate his words for that. And on the other hand, folks with their use of words and the frequency in which they use them. Up next is probably one of my best friends that I've made since moving to Vancouver, which for me, you know, has been nothing short of transformational. You know, I've been a practicing artist for a couple of years now, but I was invited to become an artist in residence at Squatch Lodge just down the street, and so I'll be living there for just over another 2 years, kind of thing. And shortly after I arrived and moved in, I met Nadine, and I heard a little bit about her story, you know, over coffee, and then over a few other coffees, and then, you know, regular dinners and trips around town and out of town to visit Peter and the whole thing. And it became apparent to me very early on that she was the first real climate refugee that I'd ever met in my life. And, you know, that just kind of really blew me away to sort of know that the impacts of climate change have arrived, and many of us have already felt them. And so it's interesting to me that, you know, she chooses art as a means to sort of cope with some of these things that have happened to her, that have, you know, kind of displaced her and forced her to take a look at a world through a different lens, ultimately. And that lens is an extremely artistic lens. I've recently also sort of started to see the work that she does, that she's talked about in terms of organizing and sort of being that kind of event planner, which I think is a very thankless job for sure. But I have definitely seen the way that she kind of attracts people to this journey that she's articulated very well to many of us here tonight. And we are very excited to be a part of, you know, her vision ultimately. And so as far as, you know, her words are concerned, I think that they're quite amazing, that I leave, you know, my encounters with her feeling recharged and inspired to continue the work of making my own message chest and to do the very best that I can at it. So here's an individual that certainly has the capability to bring out the best in all of us. It's Nadine.
Hi, everyone. And can you hear me? Yeah, I always have a loud voice. Wow. Massy again. I love Massy. Everybody here has been great. This is I believe, our second event. We have an event again tomorrow. Like the calm moments that happen, that come over you, because it's true. It's not a performance. It's not an act. It's real life. I'm here today with some amazing artists that have shared so many stories about themselves personally and who they are as artists, and helped me along in suggesting how I move forward as an artist. And I considered myself an emerging artist. I guess in terms of society's terms and commercial terms, I am considered emerging. Peter has been amazing. I really enjoyed spending time with him and all the other artists out there in his shop in Mission, because it finds a way to balance me when it's crazy. You're crazy in the arts. It's all about selling. It's always about getting out there and showing who you are, when a lot of the time it's actually more about grounding yourself and being happy with your work. And I found those times out there, just being able to speak to other artists and spending that time, it grounds you. And Vancouver's really busy, you know? Everybody's go, 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 and everybody's so important, yet there's so many things going on. I find that this year was a tough year, but it was a beautiful year. The reason I'm standing here today is because for my personal journey, this is to bring my grandmother's spirits back home, one that's Shuswap and one that's Nlaka'pamux. This year, I had the honor to meet two cousins for the first time. I got to unite them with their father that they never met. I got to tell them stories about who their mother was and who their grandmother was, and stories that they never actually heard about their own family. And one time it was so beautiful. On the other part, it was so heartbreaking. So the strength that it takes a person to come forward to want to meet family that they knew existed, but also know at the same time why they don't know each other because of parents in residential, foster care, the 60s scoop. It's not easy to meet family that you never ever had a chance to know. I see many people down here. I have a cousin down here on the streets. I'm so grateful I got to meet him this year. I'm so grateful I got to meet his children. I came across a letter for one of my trips from the interior where I opened it up, and it was actually a letter from my mom. The letter was from my mom to her sister, and it was stating the truth about what she felt of her sister. They were in residential school. I guess her sister was mean to her. Sister was mean to her, so I guess her sister got beaten up by a bunch of people in residential school. My mom didn't know what she should do, because she said on one part she was really sad about it. On the other part, she didn't want to do anything because she was angry because her sister was really mean. And in the letter, you could tell that she was torn with that. She said that the sister had actually called her over to a rink one year and just to tell my mom that she was leaving residential school. And my mom said that what she told her, "Why'd you call me over here? I don't care." But then when mom wrote the letter, she felt so sad because she did care. She didn't want her to go. That one sister was Minnie. I later on heard in life that even though that older sister was really mean to my mom, when she heard my mom was going to leave residential school, she actually left downtown Eastside. She went all the way back up to Williams Lake, and she threatened my mom to kick her beep if she left. She goes, "Why would you want to leave? You want to end up like me down here in downtown Eastside? This life ain't good. You stay in school, you finish school." My mom was scared. She stayed in school. She was graduated, I think she said it was a huge class they started with in Prince George. She graduated with 5 students, Indigenous, that year. So on one part, I look at myself as first generation not to attend residential school, first generation to be children of 2 survivors of residential school. I look at the harshness that many of us have been through, military-style upbringings, that we were really never children. But I also look at some of the positive things, and someone could be a bit strict on you that probably saved your life. I have my chest here today. I didn't have much time to talk about it last time. I never seem to. I always end up telling the stories, but that's the best part, right? So I think I'm going to leave it at that. We have all together right now probably up to 7 or 8 chess artists. There is myself, Mike Alexander, Mike D'Angeli. There is Ed Noisecat Archie. There's Ronnie Dean Harris. There's Lydia Brown. There is as well, I can't name them off, up to 7. And then we also have Roxanne Charles as well that's coming in. At this point, there's more men than there is women. I find it a struggle sometimes. It challenges us in our relationships. I am looking for more women artists. I think it's important, especially from this area. But I also feel it's important that people understand what they're stepping into. I have made a few mistakes on my journey already where I've asked people to come in that were going through too much. I think it's important that we take our time to build relationships and really know where a person's at and not to push them too far. So I'm pretty protective of people that I bring in, that I speak with. I really want them to know about what this journey is and to know that they'll be okay, because you hit when you're doing the artwork and what you're bringing out in the artwork and what you go through the artwork and on a journey is really deep, and sometimes it could hit you really hard. So I have to be, to me, it's not about business, it's about making sure the people I work with are okay. And yeah, so I'm gonna introduce you to the next new artist, Roxanne Charles.
CM Roxanne Sitsanat CM. Thank you all for being here tonight. I see another artist, Rita Wong. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you. I would like to ask if everybody could rise, because I'd really like to thank Nadine, and I keep hearing the love song in my head, and I know that this work is really grounded in the love that we have for all of our people, and that we recognize that when we're losing our matriarchs and our grandmothers, we're losing a vast amount of knowledge, but also key parts, integral parts to our health and well-being as well. So I know that this work is heavy, and I'm really grateful for you for doing it, so I'd like to offer this song. Oh, I am really grateful to be here tonight, and I'm really grateful that you have all made time in your schedule to come here, and those that are online, that you're joining us in this conversation. Nadine and I had met at the Vancouver Maritime Museum, and she was telling me about the project, and I was really, really moved by the project, and I thought this would be just something I would love to be a part of. And where the conversation left off, I didn't realize that I would get the honor of being an artist to make or to work on one of these chests. And I feel that I am ready, and a few months ago I wasn't. I'm constantly reminded of these geese teachings that you can't always be at the front. You need to take your time and take time to heal and look after yourself, or you're not good to the rest of the community. So I had divested from social media quite a bit and just been engaging in cultural work and uplifting our community members and children and youth and elders, and engaging in things in the lifestyle that I grew up in, you know, canning salmon and processing food and gathering tea and going out on canoe journeys and drumming and singing and all of those beautiful things. And so when I went on social media, I seen this event, and I was really, really excited, and I thought I'd love to bring my grandma down to participate in this event. And so I got to witness the very first conversation, which was recorded, and I was watching that last night, and I was just so moved by Mary Point, by your niece, by all the conversations that were had. Even the gentleman I couldn't really even see in there was just acknowledging how meaningful it was for him as an Indigenous person to be welcomed on these lands, and really wanting to share with Mary how grateful that he was for that. And I was very fortunate, but I'm one of, I feel like, the last generations that was raised with really strong cultural Coast Salish values of the importance of family and the strength of women. I was raised, my grandmother Nlaka'pamux is here, my children are here as well, and we have a friend visiting too. So when we grew up, my great-grandma had 15, there was 15 siblings, and so then each of them went on to have like at least 2 or 3 children. Some had 7, so we grew up too, like every Sunday going to my grandmother's house, and my great-grandmother was the only thing that really kept us together. And I noticed that in a lot of communities, that when we lose these elders, there's a lot of fighting over property or the things that never really mattered or what were really meaningful. And so for me, we're trying to bring some of that back, you know, the joy of just getting together and drumming and singing together, just going out on the water. We have some beach walks planned, some reconnections in this project. It's really important, and I feel grateful to be a part of it, because when thinking about these stories and how we have loved ones that haven't made it home or haven't been able to be there as grandmothers for their children or mothers for their children. So this chest for me, I would like to do in honor. I would like to speak a little bit about matriarchal societies too, because Indigenous people didn't have this, like you could be adopted into a community as an adult, and all of these divisions and dispossession that the colonial law has. So for me, we have a matriarch that came from Kwakwaka'wakw territory, and she married into our family, and she just became part of our family, just like my aunties who married into Tsleil-Waututh became part of Tsleil-Waututh, be part of that community. And so I would like this chest too to honor her and the fight that she did for her granddaughter, because my cousin Tressa Williams was missing for a number of years, and as her grandmother, partial remains were found on not too far from here on Charles Street, and her grandmother would go there and advocate to the Vancouver Police Station just down the road and say, I'm really looking for my granddaughter. She provided DNA. Her remains were in the basement for the duration of the time when she was still alive. They found her remains in 87. She disappeared in 86, I believe. So I think that this, being here, I think that this is an important story that I need to share. Because she was murdered when I was 8 years old, disappeared when I was 8 years old. Where my house is situated, I see the last place I spoke to her every day. And she had 2 beautiful children that she left us with at 6 months old. And the twins just passed away, both during COVID. So one from a lack of care from the medical institutions, not proper blood work, very young. He did not live till he was 30 years old. So this is what happens as we're losing and having our families displaced. But the other young man, his twin brother, just passed away just up the street this year. And so for me, I think that this is important work that I need to do for myself. I think it's important work that my children need to witness. That community has an opportunity to engage in these conversations. And to me, this is a ceremony. And I know art's kind of weird. In my work, I went to school for contemporary art, but in many ways, my art is ceremony to me. It's grounded in weaving. It's grounded in prayer. It's speaking to something spiritual. It's a documentation in space, but our artworks traditionally functioned in very different ways, political ways, spiritual ways, all these things kind of intertwined. And that's what I see when I look at this project. And I'm so honored to meet you and grateful that I'll have the opportunity. And we were speaking and he asked me if I carved, and I'm kind of learning and working on a mask. And so I think I will take that on to make sure that I handle this in the best way possible. And so I just kind of, I'm all disjointed, but one of the things that came out in this that we were talking about was inherent responsibilities. And I seen that in the email that you sent out. And not to mix this or entangle it with political elected leadership. And I think that's what I'll just share a little bit on that and why. So in 1920, it was made illegal for us to govern ourselves. At that time, systemic regulations through the Indian and Northern Affairs, through the Indian Act, dictates to this day how we govern ourselves on reserve. A lot of the time, while we're suffering and dealing with these issues and trying to do damage control and loss prevention and all of these sort of things, most of our elected officials are dictated with dealing with weekly meetings, whether that's Ministry of Transportation and Highway or Forests or all of these other things, but they're on their timeline, on their time, playing, their rules and the mandates that those people have sitting at the table. They don't have the power to give them what they want. And so the reason I'm mentioning this, because if you look across the country, that's the problem. The problem is we have a lot of grassroots people trying to do whatever they can to save lives, to uplift community, to prevent harm for youth, to do all of these sort of things with no resources. And then we have these colonial structures imposed on us. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that and say that I really respect you for stepping forward with this work, because it's no easy task. And I just think that that's what we need. And hearing you speak about community, and it's not just First Nations people, but we do all have rights. And what are our rights and responsibilities to the lands that we're on, right? And how can we come together as a community to create a safer space for all of our children, for all of our women, for all of our people? And oh wow, my memory's getting better. The one last thing I wanted to share with you was this. So, my children are Secwepemc and Salish. I'm from Semiahmoo, and their lineage from Adams Lake, near Chase. And so their uncle, Mike, shares a story about Skalnitsa, and the story about, so a long time ago when the tall ships first arrived in Victoria, there was this thing like they wanted them to see how big and how strong the boats were, and how these weapons and how these tools could just blow down trees and do all of these sort of things. And so they sent out like a scout party, and they came down and they went to Victoria in canoes, and they were witnessing what was happening. And there were these big exhibitions of showing them how strong that this Western society was. And the one thing that Skalnitsa said when he went home and talked to his people, that said, they think that they're so big and so strong, they're shooting at whales and blowing down trees. And he said, but their own people were begging on the street. And so this talks about the systems of care that we had in place prior to colonization, the systems of care that we're still trying and fighting multiple generations to hold on to. And it points at the direct kind of problem that the Western society we're living in today isn't caring for its own people. And so how can we all come together and make sure that everyone's cared for, that no one is hungry, that no one is out there on the streets? It broke my heart, even just the amount of young people that are out there struggling in addiction that will have permanent mental health issues from lack of support. So I know this is kind of all over the place, and Nadine said she never talks about the design, but that's the thing, is that these are so all interconnected, right? So.
No, you're awesome.
Aw.
You're awesome.
O siyam, hajka siyam.
Thank you very much, miigwech. We're going to take a 5-minute break here. I'm freaking out. Need to get up and walk around a bit, or maybe use the washroom, or enjoy a beverage from the table on my left over there. And also, for those who might be able to, the Honoring Our Grandmothers project is accepting donations to continue to allow for this work to continue over the next few years. So if you are able to, if it's been on your mind, if you are moved to do so, the table on my left is also able to help with that. So we'll see you all in 5. 1 minute.
Could I have the people from Massy Arts Society maybe come to the front? Okay. So we have some smudge, and some of the things are prickly. They're meant to keep away bad things. Some are sweeter. They're meant to bring good energies. And this tea, you just use a little pinch in a boiling pot of water. That's fireweed fluffing around here. There you go. And I have one for Nadine. I have one for you as well. You're doing an amazing job with the emceeing. Yeah. And we have a package coming for you as well. Thank you so much for making these. The kids are going to go around and make sure that everybody has one of these packages. They're small bundles of sage that were gifted to us by the children from Adams Lake when we went on the canoe journey. And I was just very moved by these children. A lot of children, we've lost a lot of generations. They have a school up there called Chifa Tom, and they've been learning from the elders the songs, and the children are actually the ones holding all that healing space. And so they say you usually don't hear when people are doing good, you usually hear when people are doing bad. But I just thought, I was so moved that people need to hear more of the good work that people are doing. So thanks again for being here.
I'm looking at notes, wondering what I'm going to say. That's strange. Yeah, so we're gonna show a few clips in a couple of minutes here. I'm just gonna give you a bit of a insight into what's going on in my brain as it relates to this this journey as well. And I just kind of want to be as brief as I can here. So it was probably 4 years ago, that I found myself in the Kelowna Art Gallery, where there was a retrospective on the work of an Anishinaabe artist, Daphne Ojig, who I understand lived out the rest of her days in Kelowna. And at the time I lived in Kamloops and was really excited about Daphne's work, being that, you know, I am kind of practicing in the Woodland School of Art as well. And her and Norval Morrisseau are people that I credit as being sort of the originators of it back in the 1960s. So there was this art show, and so we drove to Kelowna to take it in. And I'd never been in a room of Daphne's work before. And it was in a room just a little bit smaller than this one. There's probably 8 or 9 paintings in total. And after spending, you know, a couple minutes looking at them, I found myself weeping inconsolably and uncontrollably. And, you know, this wasn't certainly something I'd planned on. I mean, art is art, but this was certainly an emotional reaction that I haven't forgotten since. And one of the things that occurred to me in that moment, standing there among these incredible pieces of art, was the fact that, you know, there was also a television sort of looping an interview with her back in the 1990s, I think, or 2000s, in which she was talking about some of her things. And it occurred to me that she could have been my grandmother. She could literally have been my grandmother. You know, because of our ages, you know, she wasn't my grandmother. But in that moment, I realized for one of the first times in my life the significance of this absence that I have felt since I was born, since I was adopted out as part of the 60s Scoop, since growing up in Winnipeg, totally disconnected from my family and my culture, my language and my art. For the very first time in my life, I felt like I was in the company of this person who had painted these things and who'd left them for me to find that day, and that these things were in fact medicine. And I was involved in a ceremony. And like we heard earlier this evening about how art is in fact ceremony, it was very life-changing, you know, and it made me think that, you know, what if my grandmother had taught me how to paint? You know, I think one of the glorious things that I love about the West Coast is that some people are born into it. You know, sometimes you're handed a pencil and you start drawing ovoids when you know how to hold that pencil, and that's what your life is. And that, to me, isn't something that I know, you know. I think that's such an honor. I think that's such a privilege to be able to sort of be, to find that gift, you know, upon birth, that your course in life can be to become a very respected artist. And so at that moment I realized that Daphne was talking to me, that her work was inviting me to connect with her, to embrace it and to embrace her and to embrace the idea that, you know, art is an inherently spiritual act. And ever since then I realized that I'm not painting eagles and bears and turtles and trees and things like that. I'm praying. I'm praying to my ancestors. I'm praying to my family. I'm praying to the people who I will never be able to feel what it's like when they hold me. You know, and I think that a lot of that pain is the subject of, you know, some of the bad decisions that I've made in my life, you know, that I'm working at, you know, forgiving myself for. But certainly it becomes a little bit more understandable the more that I learn about kind of the history of colonization in this country and the impact that it's had on myself and my generation and my parents and their parents and so on and so forth. It makes a tragic amount of sense. And so I paint out of necessity. It's about cultural survival. It's about connection. It's about decolonization. And it's about taking the time to spend with these elders in my life who, given a chance, you know, I would give anything to spend, you know, a day with them. And, you know, I have to do this, and I am extremely honored to be a part of this project, to be able to take the time to listen quietly to what they have to say to me, and to make me understand that my work today is medicine for the next 7 generations. So that's the significance. That's why this is my life's work. This is why there isn't much of anything else I'm going to ever do with my life other than art. I take it seriously. I have a very, very good time with it. I love learning about my family. I have some good stories about kind of various family members that I've had the pleasure to meet over the past couple of years back in my journeys back home to Manitoba. And so it's a very important time for me. It's a very good time for me to be able to meet aunties and uncles and cousins and even a sister of mine with whom I'm, you know, enjoying fairly active sort of Facebook Messenger experience with at the moment. So that's me. That's my work, and I look forward to you being able to sort of see some of it in person one day really soon. And with that, we do have some I guess, audio and visual to share with you from at least a couple of the artists who are going to be involved and who are involved in different stages of involvement with this project. So we're going to get to watch a little television tonight, which is great. Thank you very much. And yeah, right on.
Pick one.
Hi, my name is Ed Archie Noiscat. I'm Secwepemc and Statlium from British Columbia. I graduated from Emily Carr College of Art in Vancouver back in 1986. Moved to the States right after that, and I've been making art ever since. I live in Bremerton, Washington. This project was brought to us by Nadine Spence, who's up in BC, and she has selected a number of artists to work on the Honoring Our Grandmothers project, A Healing Journey. I will be working with images from both sides of my family. My Secwepemc family will be represented by my Alice Noiscat, which is where my name comes from. And the other side of the family, which is my father's mother, Anne Gika, who was a major weaver, basket weaver for the Lil'wat Nation. This is one of her works, and her later on in age, with some of her materials behind her. There are a couple of images on the block over here of her as a younger lady. So that side of the family is covered. I will also be using imagery of the mountain called Inshukch, right near Mount Currie, which is where our families, our people tied off 2 great canoes during the Great Flood. So the imagery included will be some of our earlier stories of course, of surviving the flood, and some of the more contemporary, such as my grandmother's basketry, and the other side will be my Alice, who used to take me on her trap line, checking the traps and snares and so on, and coming home in a little sled, horse-drawn sled, with a pile of beaver and squirrels and rabbits all around me. It must have been quite an image. So I'm working on that side of the story for the box as we speak. So I will be getting on this piece right away, and hopefully we'll have a really cool piece to show you fairly soon. So it is an honor for me to be included in this project, and I look forward to presenting it to you. Thank you. Sled, horse-drawn sled, with a pile of beaver and must have been quite an image. So I'm working on that side of the story for the box as we speak. So I'll be getting on this piece right away, and hopefully we'll have a really cool piece to show you fairly soon. So it is an honor for me to be included in this project, and I look forward to presenting it to you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm William Nelson. I am Nadine Spence's eldest grandson. I'd like to talk today about honoring the grandmothers and what it means to me and my family about the chest and honoring the grandmothers in general. So, I've been a part of this journey since last year. I carried the chest, the artist of the chest, my grandma, Nadine Spence, who is the leader of this organization, or I don't know how to describe it. But I was there. I carried the chest from Crab Park to Oppenheimer Park, I think that's what it's called. And it really did mean a lot. Like, I got to see everything, see what people went through down there, and that was a big eye-opener, walking through East Hastings, all that, with a lot of people, a lot of my family, my siblings, and that did mean a lot. The chest, to me, it means a new like, I don't know how to describe it. It means a new beginning, in a sense. I can let go of the stuff from the past. That's what it's initially for, I believe. That's what my grandma has taught me to believe that it's for, is to let go of the past and show your true emotions and show what the chest truly means to you and what you can let go, honoring the grandmothers, like she's said. And I just like to believe that it was a really good experience. Like a lot of people, like Autumn Walkham, she inspired me a lot last year, and this presentation we just had, I think it was a couple days ago, that her video, or no, not her video, that's my grandma, sorry. Her speech was very heartfelt. It was a good speech. I loved it. I think Autumn Walkham deserves every bit of credit she gets. And I'd like to thank everybody that has joined my grandma on her journey, this journey. This has really meant a lot to her, and I could see it has. I'm very grateful to be on this journey. And yeah, it really means a lot to be a part of this. I know a lot of you people really enjoy what my grandma's doing. It's a real eye opener for some of you, and you can finally, you could be free. You can honor your ancestors, honor yourself, and just know what it truly means to be First Nations.
Waisim gigat sigamhanach gubawuksan. Got some milk at a teeth clean at a Mike Dansley de Wayu. Gingola de Wawatko. It's a milk deep at Echko. Chilawak de Watsakan. Amasasa got one. Good day to you all, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Dansley. My Niska name is Gotsamil. My Tlingit name is Teeth Clean. I am from the house of Baitnach. I'm from the village of Gingolith, Nass River, BC, as well as Wootst and Medik, Metlakatla, Alaska. I'm an artist and carver. I am excited to be taking part in this wonderful project. The bentwood box I'm doing is a large chest, and I'm actually attaching masks to it. This chest is to honor our women who have served in the military or who have assisted in that service. Myself, I've served 10 years as a U.S. Army Airborne Ranger. I have 4 tours. And so this is something that really means a lot to me to be a part of this and being able to share and talk about our hana'a, our women. We're in the north, we're matrilineal, so everything we are or what I am comes from my mother, my aunties, and my grandmother, and it is passed on through my sisters. So it really means a lot for me to be able to do this, as a number of my family have served in various ways in the military or assisted the military as nurses and what have you. And so it's really been important for me to be a part of this and to talk about that, as I really feel like our women veterans don't get the attention that they deserve. So the box will have, because I'm from the Beaver clan, it will have a beaver woman on there representing my mother, my grandmother, my aunties, my sisters, and all the way to the very beginning of time of my clan and my house. On the other side will be a woman representing all of our beautiful matriarchs, our hana'a, who have served. And I'm collaborating with a really wonderful beater, and she is actually beating me poppies that will be, I haven't decided if I'm going to inlay them or overlay them onto the lid of the box to show that balance of power, both male and female energy into this project. The rest of the design will be something that I'm really thinking about, and definitely because I'm honoring my clan and my house, it seems only appropriate to have the imagery be of my family's crests. So doing this to honor my aunties and my mom and my grandmother and my great-grandmother, who worked so hard during times of conflict to help in every effort that they could in supporting our youth, our men who went off to war. And in modern times and in contemporary times, I actually have women family who have gone and served in the military as well. So I'm very proud of them and their sacrifice. So this is really about this, and excited to be able to share this and get on the box. I am a carver and artist. I grew up on both sides of the border and have been living since I got out of the military, lived in the Lower Mainland for over 20 years and took 5 years off to go home to my father's territory to teach at a K through 12 school. I'm now living in Chilliwack, British Columbia with my family, where my wife is a professor at the University of Fraser Valley, and we're raising our son. I have 2 older boys who work with me as well. And I am a carver and artist, and I've been recently commissioned to do 7 more poles after my 27th totem pole for the murdered and missing and residential school survivors. It's really was something that's in my heart to be able to do this, so I see this as part of that continuation of being able to lift up and honor our hana'a. I'm very grateful for this time and opportunity. I apologize for not being there in person, but I had other things. I'm actually in my studio office, my paint studio office, and I just finished carving. I have some projects that I'm getting finished, and it is almost 1:30 in the morning, and I've been working a very long day. So I have another one of those tomorrow, and that was why I didn't want to try driving into the city and driving back with very little sleep. But I just really raised my hands up to all of my fellow artists. And Nadine, thank you for this opportunity, being able to share just a small portion and talk about what I will be contributing to this. I look forward to bringing it out and unveiling it here in the near future. Sa'am, you and may your names all be good. And ta'axism for this time.
If anyone has any questions before we conclude this evening.
I have a question. You said you were looking for more artists. I was thinking, because the Carnegie has social sharing every Monday. We have a lot of Indigenous women that go there. I wonder if it could be like a project that the Colbert could maybe
Her
purposely.
name was mentioned as well, and I think Carolyn Victor, but if we could actually, Savannah, did you want to say some closing Yeah, did you want to say some closing words, Savannah? And then we'll just, then we could just talk with people here with no camera on. So I could laugh.
I'm Savannah from Vancouver Moving Theatre in the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival, which is now in its 19th year. I also carry the name Sha'atsa, which in Haida means supporter of all things. It's been a great gift for us that Nadine has brought this project, brought this journey, brought this whole movement into this community to share with us. And that's arousing so many memories and emotions, and so many teachings that are part of it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to be emerging, and been very deeply touched personally by what has been emerging to this day. And one of the amazing ripples that I'm finding is that realizing that Roxanne Charles, who's going to be part of this journey, that she is related to Joanne Charles from the Semiahmoo Nation, who wrote beautiful words of congratulations for Terry's mother's 90th birthday a few years ago, and helping to place a family with the understanding of the connections with the land. And I feel that for myself, this journey has been part of for myself coming as a descendant of 12 generations of refugees from Northern Europe who came down through the Appalachian Mountains and the Ozarks down to the Indian Territory around Oklahoma and Texas. And then for myself coming up here during the Vietnam War, that this kind of a journey is deeply meaningful for the settler families, too, descendants who have come from families that have been disconnected from lands and waters and displaced from those understandings that we need to be able to survive as humans, and to survive in ways of respect with those that are part of all the lands that we're part of. So it's a powerful journey with these beginning steps, and I'm looking forward to what is going to be unfolding. And one of the chests that Nadine has been part of creating is a community elements message chest, of which there are artists who have contributed to it from different cultural backgrounds with different connections to people of these lands, including Rita Wong here, and some of the, and a poem from myself coming through my family. And you can see this up on the wall of the Limsai Nlaka'pamux Association building, which is just here at the edge of going down Pender Street, turning left onto Carroll, and on the west side of the street. So this is a window display that was inspired by the creation of this Healing Grandmother's Journey, inspired by the chest that Nadine was part of inspiring, and that is part of a partnership that is emerging and happening between members of the Chinese-Canadian community here in this Downtown Eastside, and with the Sacred Rock, Further We Rise Indigenous Arts Collective. So I would just finish by saying this is an honor, it's a gift, and it's good medicine for our community too. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just going to add, the Heart of the City Festival has many events and that are still happening between now and November the 6th. There are program guides here that will give you an idea of the breadth of the kind of cultural traditions and activities that are happening. And if any of you have a chance, we hope you have a chance to enjoy some of the in-person or online events that are happening.
But also tomorrow, remember, we're here, the inherent responsibility.
Yes, and there is a session on inherent responsibility that is taking place tomorrow night, here, same place, same time, and with artists speaking that have been involved on the journey of the creation of the Community Elements Chest, which is a chest intended to gather messages from people, the messages that they want to send to their grandmothers or family members, their ancestors, to the lands or the waters or the salmon. And so these are messages that are going to be gathered, have been gathered, and will continue to be gathered over the next few years to be treated with respect, with ceremony, to bring their spirits back to the land up the river.